Hey family, it is your girl, Michelle Allen Franklin. Yes, Miss Michelle DIY for divine intervention, honey, because there are no coincidences in this world, only God's divine intervention in our lives. And Miss Community Builder, why? Because you know your girl is giving you the good information, honey, the things that you need for your mind, your body, your spirit, and those good emotions. And you know I'm always keeping you in the know of people who you need to know, honey, in 2024. And who do you need to know? Mr. Isaac Belota.
Oh, me? You need to know me?
We gotta know you, Isaac. We gotta know you. We gotta know you, boo. In 2024, and he's been around for a minute, so we late, honey.
Yeah, been around since 1999, actually.
And before that, look, and before that.
I didn't exist before that. I'm only 25.
Look, and before you existed in your mama's womb, I'm just honey. This is why you got to know Isaac, honey, because he keeps a smile on your face. He is an extraordinary people. He has an amazing podcast. So check the backdrop, honey. Your girl's been on a few times. Yes. I love it. I had to scoot over a little bit so they can see my face.
Oh, okay. Which way? This way?
That's me.
Yeah. You can see which way do I point? You can see a little bit of the unordinary people there.
Unordinary people. I love it. We're going to have an amazing conversation today with this beautiful young man today, this beautiful specimen here. I'm excited. I had to have him on. I've been on his platform twice now, and so it's only right that he would return the favor and come on to mine.
Well, I think you're the first podcast that I did my friend Noah's podcast, but other than that, you're the first one I've been on. So
nice. And yeah. How does it feel to be on the other side?
It's a little nerve-wracking. I try to make things as little about myself as possible.
That sounds just like a man. That's
We'll get into that later on in the episode, right?
We'll get into it. Well, it is Men's Month, honey, and I am honored and privileged to have you, Isaac, on today. It's just a pleasure. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike. It's nice to be recognized, I guess.
Yes. I think that's one thing that I feel like the Lord has given me is I like to see people, and I see you. I see the work that you're doing, and you have an amazing heart. And so only right that we shine some light on you today. So let's talk a little bit about you, Isaac. Who are you, Isaac? Who are you out in these internet streets? Who are you?
Well, I guess I'm. I like to say freelance journalist because podcaster, sounds kind of like hipstery, and I don't like to do that. But I do podcasting interviews. Just try to meet as many interesting, incredible people as I can, especially in the area, because I want to promote people around me. I do some video work, audio work, digital art, different stuff like that. Some physical art that I'm always self-conscious about because it's hard to. You don't want to be don't want your heart and soul judged out there, I guess. Are you gone?
No.
But yeah, so that's pretty much who I am, I guess.
It's all good. Look, I'm going in from the solo to the. I'm trying to give you a little spotlight.
Okay, I got you. Okay.
I got you.
Yeah, but then I got to look at my face,
Yes. Oh, good. Listen, your face is a beautiful face. Your smile is a beautiful smile. We're gonna be looking at you today.
All right.
We're gonna be looking at you today, into your heart, into your soul. It's Men's Month, and so this is one of the things that I love because you guys do hide. Men like to hide. We like to hide. Y'all like to hide. I'm saying we, like I'm a man. I don't know nothing about it. Only what I study.
You're stealing our culture.
And so y'all like to hide. Y'all like to hide your emotions, your feelings, and all of the things. And so that is really one of the reasons why as well I wanted to bring you on, because we were talking and during my session, one of my episodes with you, or both of them, but you were sharing so much, and I just always feel like, I know it's hard, right? And I know that it is not comfortable, but to shed a light and say, hey, it's okay to have these feelings, that men do feel these things, and that's just a conversation that I wanted to have and bring to light today. So, but before we get into all of that, really quickly, tell us a little bit, let's just go back a little bit and tell us, how did you get started doing Unordinary People, and even, doing podcasting and editing and all of the media things that you do, because you're like a media guru. That's what I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna deem you a media guru. All things media.
I'll have to find a mountain to hang out on.
There you go. Yes, you do.
So I guess how I got started with that was like, if we go way back, was me and my brothers had friends, Brandon and Connor, and they were homeschooled too, and so we'd hang out a lot, go to a lot of different museums and stuff together. And Brandon sort of got interested in videography, kind of filming stuff, and so we'd make these home videos, and they were pretty bad plot wise. They kind of just went wherever. The comedy probably wasn't that great. Hopefully mine has since evolved. And, but it first really got us into, or at least got me into wanting to, put together stories and things like that. Time went on. I started picking up woodworking as a hobby, and a lot of how I learned was just watching other people on YouTube, and they'd show different tricks and different projects and stuff. And I had little Nikon point and shoot camera that can record probably low quality video, but I started just setting up the camera in my shop and making little videos of me woodworking. Later on, that turned into blacksmithing. I used to forge stuff. Would forge knives and tools and stuff, and so sometimes I'd film that. And but it was sort of a continuation of that kind of DIY idea. I wanted to learn new things in woodworking or blacksmithing, and I transferred that over to video making. And my brother Atticus, he's a very talented guitarist, and he also plays violin. Anything with strings he can play pretty much. And we both took hand drumming lessons from Mondo Drummers in Fort Worth, Eddie Dunlap. I think he's retired now. But so we both learned the djembe from him. I really stuck with the djembe. I play some drum kit now too. But so we'd play together. I'd play hand drums, the blocks and stuff. He'd play guitar. And so from that, I started getting into like audio recording and stuff like that. Kind of realized videos are a lot better when the sound is good on it too. So started kind of piecing all those things together. Everything was kind of the DIY idea. And when I eventually did decide to go to college, I picked mass communications as my major. and it was geared towards like marketing, commercial sales. But I also learned, all the video editing, all the things I'd need to know to make a commercial. I
Yeah.
learned some graphic design, radio work, stuff like that. And while I was in there, uh, I guess I need to shout out TJC because that's where I was doing it. I was
Yes,
working for the drum beat
TJC.
there.
That's a good foundation
Dr.
right there. TJC. People sleep on it, but that's a great foundation.
It is Dr. Gray, Adrian Hampton, Miss J, and I blanked out on their name and I feel so bad. She taught me photography, like real photography. But I wish I could remember her name, but I can't right now. But yeah. Miss Dickerson. Miss Dickerson, which I think has changed now. She got married. But they have an awesome program there at TJC. So while I was there, I started a podcast because I wanted to more apply the stuff I was learning. And so I called it The People You Will Meet. And so I managed to get different people I'd met through my college journey, even interviewed the president of TJC. We're now Facebook friends. And yeah. And so I won several awards for that. I won some awards for a PSA I did for a food bank that
Tell
was
people what a PSA
campus.
is. What's a public
okay.
announcement, right?
Yeah, it's public service announcement. Think of it as a commercial for a charity, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Or like if it's something from the government, let's say it could be warning you about something or yeah, but public service announcement.
Yes.
Yeah, so I won some awards from TIPA, which is Texas Intercollegiate Press Association. and
that's fancy.
Yeah, so all the colleges with media courses participate in it, and TJC is actually one of the top ranked in Texas and one of the top ranked in the U.S. For mass communications. We compete with Baylor and A&M, all those different schools.
All the big guys.
Yeah,
guys,
and
let me just say this really quick. TJC is Tyler Junior College. It is a local junior college here in East Texas and Tyler, Texas. I'm a alma mater. It's one of my alma maters as well. But great foundation again, somewhere to be laid. So just want to toss that in there. So for those people, it's like, what is TJC? Yes.
Go there, save your money from a 4-year college, and they'll actually work with you there too on financing. So but yeah, so that was over the course of about 4 years because I wanted to go through school without any debts. So I worked my way through it. So it took me a little longer, and COVID and everything in between. But when I graduated, I kind of realized I don't want this to sound mean because like I like a lot of the people and like majority of the people that were in that group at TJC. But over time it started out the people who were going in really wanted to do journalism. They really wanted to find out stories, discuss things, find out what the actual truth was.
Yeah.
And as time went on, things became more politically and socially motivated.
Sure.
Is probably the right way to put it. And sort of in my last semester, there were some people where just conversations and the way things went, I realized they were more into pushing an agenda, I guess, but also it was through like stereotyping people. It
Yeah.
was sort of like, oh, I've got this checklist, right? And if
Mhm.
somebody meets these 2 or 3 parameters,
Mhm.
they automatically will just assume that they agree with this or they believe this sort of
Sure.
thing.
Sure.
And I realized because what we were doing was geared towards going into radio or working in a newsroom.
Mhm.
So I realized if I went to work in a newsroom, I would have to be working with these people and under people who had this idea of how people were, who people are,
Yeah.
and
The
I
preconceived notions and yeah,
yeah, that's
stereotypes
better.
basically.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I feel like most people have more similarities than they have differences. At the
Yeah.
core, people usually want the same things.
Yeah.
Granted, there's sociopaths and psychopaths out there who
Of
want
course.
different things,
Yeah.
but most people want the same things. They probably just have different philosophies on how they get there, right?
Yeah.
Or how they think things should be run.
Yeah.
Or and I know also that people have differing opinions within any set group you could make up, you know?
Yeah.
And and I wanted to do my own thing like I always do. I wanted to
Yeah.
DIY it,
Yeah.
and I wanted to actually get to meet people, and I wanted to figure out what they were about, not make it about what I assumed they were gonna believe or what they thought. And,
Yeah.
and so I graduated, and I reached out to a local artist, Dot's a Kid, and,
Mhm.
to my amazement, she responded and said, "Yeah, let's do it," you know? And that's that's sort of been the thing I've realized is, like, people wanna talk to you, you know? People it's not as hard as you would think to reach out to somebody. And, you know, there's
Right.
that fear you've got this fear of rejection, but, like, you know, I enjoy talking to you. I'm glad you reached out to
Yeah.
me about doing a podcast, and that's how
Yeah.
most people feel, you know?
Yes, it is the power. You said a couple of things that I want to touch on.
Mhm,
But I think the biggest thing is I always come back to the power of one, and how somebody makes you feel. And Maya Angelou said, you will always remember people by the way that they make you feel,
mhm,
right? And so the power of one is somebody could take you to the left or take you to the right. With you, it sounds like it started with your friend and then your brother and the way the things that they were doing and you watching them and you was like, well, let me try and do my own thing. Just getting inspired by watching someone else. I always believe and I always say when you walk in your purpose, you will inspire somebody else to walk in theirs. And
mhm.
so it's amazing how simple your journey started by, just being connected with some friends that were being homeschooled. And then your friend decided to do something and you was like, wait a minute, okay, wait a minute, maybe I could do it. And your brother's playing and doing this music thing. So wait a minute, let me put my spin on, see what I can do. I think that is so amazing. It's so simple. And people
Mhm.
don't put it together like that, but it is the people that you're around, the people that you see, and it is the breakdown of if you're around some positivity or if you're around some negative, and how that influences your life as well. But I love the ripple effect from just being connected to these other beautiful spirits, doing something positive, and then here you are, and then here you go, also, right? Connected to some people that really are not really putting out some kind of negative energy and some negative thing. And like, wait a minute, I don't really
Mhm.
want to do that. Let me just push up against the status quo. And I love that as well. And so I love your story. I love your story. I love it. I love it. I love it. Because it's so easy for us to conform, right?
Mhm.
Some people would have, and most people do. Most people will say, "Oh man, I think that I need to, I got to make a check and I got to do this, so I'm going to have to, conform to." the status quo. I'm gonna have to do what Susie Q is doing or whoever else is doing to make money or do whatever. And so the fact that you've taken something, made it your own, and remain true to who you are and true and authentic, I'm like, let me give you some flowers for that. You know what I mean? Like, let me give you some flowers for that, because
I'll send you my address later. You can have it shipped there.
What'd you say?
I said I'll send you my address later. You can have them shipped there.
Oh, very good, very good. But you talked about fear, but that's like, that is stepping outside of fear, stepping beyond fear. And so I really, really love that.
Well, too, because we talked about this yesterday, and I think it's good segue. We got to use segues.
Yes, of course.
So like going back to that idea of fear and everything. Another thing going through the journalism classes and stuff I did, it makes you realize how much of our media is based on fear. And I guess I'll go into the history of it. But so, a lot of people will talk about, when I was a kid, there was just 2 hours in the day dedicated to news, and that was it. So, I guess it was probably 80s that CNN came about, and that completely changed everything. We then had the 24-hour news cycle.
Yes.
And we got to fill 24 hours of news, and it basically still kept to the same, 2 hours of news a day format, only we're extending it over the whole day. Time goes on. What's there's political capture in it. There's business capture in it. Excuse me, I'm drinking Dr. Pepper here. And so what the news stations realize is, if we pander to a specific group of people on the political spectrum, and because we're so good at this, we've decided on a 2-party spectrum because everybody believes one or two things. So if we pander to one side or the other, we have a market, and if we use fear, because fear is the strongest emotion we feel. You can be so happy, but you could also be so dead. You know what I mean?
Right.
So just naturally, we're wired to worry about threats to ourselves, to our safety and everything. So they realize the more we put out negative, fearful stories, the more people tune in, the more people watching, the more sales we can make. We can make sales to whatever political party we're pandering to, and as long as we keep on bumping up this dopamine fear cycle, we continue to make money, and so what that's created is you have people who are in two groups who think that the people on the other side of what you believe, I guess politically, automatically don't want the same things you do.
Right.
Most people want, sort of the Maslow's pyramid. I don't know if you know about that.
Yeah, Maslow, psychology.
Yeah. So you've got your basic needs: food, fire, shelter, and then you've got community, stuff like that. And once you achieve those things, you can have a sense of fulfillment, at least in Maslow's theory. But most people just want those things. They want to be safe. They want to be able to provide for themselves, provide for their loved ones, and people just have different philosophies on that. But what we've done is, because of this fear, we've decided that everybody who believes different from whatever personal political philosophy they have wants the exact opposite of what you want, right? Wants the
Yeah.
most extreme version of what of
Yeah.
the other side,
Yeah.
you know, and what that does is it's created this huge political rift. It's created where
Separation.
people don't want to understand the other side, don't
Right.
want to understand what other people believe,
Right.
because that those people, you know, they're sort of the Roman barbarians. They're outside of our our civilization. They want
Yeah.
something completely different, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and it creates, there's, since this has happened, there's a psychological anomaly, I guess. I'm not sure what you would call it, but there's what's called mean world syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've done these studies, and there will be old people who, or even not so old people, who will sit and they'll watch news on an endless loop.
Yeah.
And
Creates
they
fear.
believe they need to know all this information to protect themselves,
Yeah.
but they're not going out anymore. They don't go outside. They don't. And it's because they go, well, don't you know there's riots, there's terrorists, there's people who want to destroy our way of life. There's,
Right.
you know, these people are going to force me to,
Right.
you know, I don't know, perform abortions or something. And, you
Right.
know, all these
Right.
different ideas where if you sort of step outside of that and you go outside, and I can walk outside now, and I probably won't see many people because it's Rusk on a Sunday, but but I can go and find somebody and
Right.
talk to them, and and we'll just have a regular conversation, and
So,
they won't attack me. They won't
right.
try to force me to join whatever political movement. They
Right.
they're
Right.
actual human beings, you know, and
Yeah.
we've gotten this sense of that's what that's what everybody else is, right? There's the people I
Mhm.
know, but everybody outside of that, you know, are
Yeah.
crazy. And
You said a mouthful. Let's take
I
it
didn't
again.
want to keep
Yeah.
perpetrating that. I
Yeah.
wanted people to meet people of, you know, different walks of life, different experiences, different jobs, trades, whatever, and realize like there's a lot you can learn from other people,
True.
and like truly it is different and incredible as all the people I've met are. There's a lot of similarities between all of them,
Yeah.
and honestly, I don't think there's been anybody I've met that I've disliked. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
And I love that because you're meeting people from all walks of life, different financial backgrounds, different races, ethnicities, however you want to say it. But and what you said is definitely a mouthful. It is the very intentional um decision to create fear, you
mhm,
know, to control the masses. And we wonder why there's an increase of anxiety, you know what I
yeah,
mean, in our society right now. And then the divide, you
yeah,
know, the divide that is a very intentional divide. And again, like you said, the reality of the situation is that I am you and you are me, you know we are more alike than we are the same. We all want our children to be safe,
mhm,
right? We all want our children to be able to go to school and not have a fear of being shot up. Like that doesn't that crosses colors, that crosses,
yeah,
that crosses all the lines, it checks off all the boxes. Everyone wants safety, everyone wants security, everyone wants to be able to provide for their family, to be able to go to work and make a decent living,
mhm,
and so it is. I stopped watching the news years ago. I realized that it affected my spirit. you
mhm,
know it truly did. It affected my spirit. I stopped watching the news years ago, and unless it's something that I want to know, or something that I know what's going on very intentionally, I'll watch it, and I'll watch with the purpose to get in to gather information. And now, thankfully, there are other outlets, and so I
yeah,
don't necessarily have to go to the news for information. And it's just unfortunate, because it used to be, like you were saying, it hasn't always been like this, with this very intentional drive. Money is the root of all evil. And it's amazing how money shows up and dictates, all of the things, and it's very subconscious. And so we talked about the creating of anxiety. It is, Men's Month. For me, your girl covers mental health awareness. I like to bring it in throughout the year, all times of the year, because it's always ever present, right? Yeah. There's no particular month where, love it, that is highlighted in May, but October also is a mental health awareness month. So I want to go into a little bit. You talked about anxiety, about how anxiety has affected your life, and how did you recognize it? That get into your mental health journey. How does anxiety affect your life, and how did you recognize that it was affecting your day to day?
I don't know. I don't know when it was that I really recognized that anxiety was affecting my life. Like, I guess can you have both our faces on here? I don't want to look at just my face right now. So
I'll support you. Come on, I'll hold your hand.
Okay. I feel like I'm talking to the mirror right now.
Okay.
So
I'm gonna stay right here with
you. Okay. So I guess in sort of a subconscious level, I think I probably knew that anxiety was affecting me since I was pretty young. But it's, words to express it, ways to recognize it, because at a certain point it just kind of becomes part of your day to day. You don't think it's that different until you start talking to people and they start telling you, hey, this is, not normal. But also, I think so many people go through it that don't talk about it or don't think it's that strange. But I guess if we want to go way back, it probably all started 2008, 2009. Market crashes. My dad had to get laid off from his position as a manager at a large vending company in Dallas. They did coffee and stuff. He had to find a new route job with a different vending company. At the same time, my mom's mom, my nana, she falls sick with cancer. She's got it all up in her sinuses.
Sure.
And so that was a pretty tough time, because suddenly our family's financial stuff changed. Sure. My mom had to go to work more. She was already working as a swim instructor, teaching children how to swim and all that good stuff. And then my nana gets cancer, and so she's also got to be taking her to doctor's visits and stuff like that, because my grandparents lived out here and we lived in the suburbs of Fort Worth. And so she was going to doctors in Fort Worth and Dallas and stuff. So
and how old were you at this point?
At this point, I was probably 8 or 9.
Yeah.
But so things are kind of crazy. Yeah. I'm seeing my mom less, because she's busy with stuff. I mean, my dad, he always made time for us, and my mom always made time for us when he could, but he's working full time.
Yeah.
My mom's got to take care of my grandparents,
Yeah.
And so my sister's watching us a lot, and some other older people, friends of my sister and stuff, a lot in the homeschool community are watching us too.
Yeah.
Uh, but you kind of feel this pressure. Everything's weird all of a sudden.
Right.
Uh, things have changed, and I didn't feel like I could talk about it because there's all this other stuff going on.
Surely.
I want to keep people happy. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I've got two younger brothers. One's a couple years younger than me, and then one's 7 years younger than me. He's
Hmm.
3 at the time, maybe a little younger.
Yeah.
And and so I also feel this responsibility, whether or not it's actually there, but you feel it. It doesn't matter. You can't rationalize things as a kid.
Right.
Of helping them out, trying to keep them in line, so there's the least amount of stress as possible.
Sure.
Um. Uh. I'm gonna skip a story because it's gonna make me cry too much.
That's all right.
But
That's all right.
and I'm probably gonna cry and nobody can understand me in a few minutes. But so
It's okay.
that's all going through. We're going through all that. My nana eventually passes away, not necessarily from the cancer, but from the infection,
Sure.
from all the surgery and stuff, because they had to completely take apart her sinuses,
Wow.
reconstruct everything. So during that time, my sister gets engaged. My granddad, he lived back at his house around here for a while, and then we kind of went over, and it was clear he couldn't live by himself anymore. His
Hmm.
mental state was kind of declining some. He had Parkinson's, so he had to keep up with medications on that and stuff, and he was struggling, and so
What your grandmother passed, and when people have been together for years,
yeah,
one does not do well after the other one is gone. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So that's I could just imagine, the toll. But go ahead.
yeah. So at that point, um we have to convert our garage because my granddad's now coming to live with us,
Sure.
and so that's a long process of people helping from the church do stuff, juggling contractors, trying to
Yeah.
get the people in, and that probably takes a year and a half before that's all done. And my sister gets married, and probably 2 months, I can't remember exactly, I'm 11 at the time,
Sure.
but my grandfather passes away during all that, and it's
Wow.
it's the Jesus clock in here saying a prayer.
That's a lot. That's okay. That's a lot.
um
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a lot.
it is. So during all this time, there's this feeling of like everything's so crazy, everything's changing. uh Eli, with my sister getting married, I think it hit him a lot. Also, he's just lost both his grandparents, and he's like 4 years old,
Yeah. Yeah.
and so
And now big sister's
he,
gone
he's
too.
he's acting out. Probably us as young boys, me and my brother weren't great about handling it either.
Yeah,
and
sure.
and so things are a little wild, and everybody's sort of stressed out, and so I'm still feeling these things,
Mm-hmm.
feeling a lot of hurt,
Yeah.
and don't know how to express it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, things sort of get better from there. Um, into through middle school, uh, but like at one point my sister has some serious mental health problems, depression and
Mm-hmm.
such, and it got kind of scary there,
Yeah.
and there again, it's
Holding all this stuff inside.
trying, yeah, because I don't want to be another problem on top of that, you know.
Let's take a minute.
And
Let's take a minute.
okay,
Let's take a minute. Let's take a minute. I know. Sip some Dr. Pepper and take a breath from
yeah,
it.
yeah.
Take a breath.
That's why it's Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. Yeah. Take a breath. Like,
Must have drank 18 Dr. Peppers that day.
I'm sure. I'm sure. But I mean what you're saying and what was happening, starting at a young age, you had one for your grandmom to be sick, for your nana to be sick, and then the dynamic of the household to change.
Hmm.
No fault of your own. I always say when I'm talking about stuff and, we're talking about our parents and different things and how we felt and who all was involved, this is not an attack on anyone. This is just acknowledging what was actually happening and what you were feeling at that time and how it affected you.
Yeah.
Because this is something that we do, is we act like we're not affected by things and we continue to go on, but we were affected. And so I just want to put that out there for anyone watching. Like, this is not an attack. It is not, anything like that. It's just acknowledging that you were a young boy, at the time, and your life changed, and then your grandmother passed. You don't know how to handle a loss. Grown people don't know how to handle a loss of Nana, right? And then granddad gets sick. And then, so then your household is changing. Sister's trying to help and say, sister's not the same as mom. Right?
Yeah.
Your sister loves you, but that's a whole different dynamic. And so because there are so many people out there that don't understand animosity and little things that might have developed and how anxiety develops, but it all generally reverts back to childhood. And it's these little things like this that was traumatic.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't want it to sound at all like I'm blaming my parents or
That's what I'm
something.
saying. Yeah, no.
It's
Exactly.
I'm sure they would have wanted to talk to me, help me any way they could have.
They were trying to survive themselves. I'm sure they were trying to survive themselves. They had no idea. And especially before, and this is the biggest thing and why these conversations are so important. It's not for that generation, and it's not for us, it's for the generations behind us that are coming, so that maybe if we put some light and shed some light when these things happen, we know, okay, wait a minute, we gotta look at what's going on with the children a little bit closer. We gotta look at, okay, mom probably was spread thin. I'm sure your dad was spread thin, but we still gotta figure out a way. How can we work the children into this and maybe pay a little bit more, because we just miss it. It's no fault of their own. Everybody trying to survive at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. Like I said, I don't want it to sound like I'm trying to blame my parents for things. And
exactly.
Excuse me, Dr. Pepper. So, I don't know. I guess the next thing would be sort of high school age coming up. This is the time when I get really into woodworking, blacksmithing, making things in general. And that's just what I'm interested in. So homeschool community is weird. I'm sure everybody knows that, but especially if you're from the outside of it. But a lot of it is very geared academically, and I don't want to say that I'm not an academic or minded person or something like that, because I do enjoy those things, philosophical, engineering, stuff like that. I do find interesting, but at the time, what I want to do as a kid is go in my garage and make something,
and, that was your escape. I'm sure that was your escape. Yeah.
And a lot of, like I said, a lot of the families, it was I was like, oh well, you're gonna go and be an engineer because that's what your father did, and he makes a lot of money at that.
Yeah.
And and so there was a lot of that, and I sort of felt this thing of we've talked about it before, but sort of the unworthiness,
Yeah.
of like, oh, I'm not as smart as these people, and I wanted to prove that I was, but I also, was like, I've got to stay in this lane or something like that. I didn't have the
Yeah.
self-confidence to say, I'm just interested in other things. It doesn't mean these things are better or worse.
Right.
And they probably didn't have the self-confidence enough to say that I'm interested in these things. These things don't mean they're better or worse. But um so there was always this sort of thing in the back of my head that I wasn't cut out for college. I wasn't cut out for, the academic world or something like that, I'm just a blue collar guy. I work on, small engines. I hammer out knives and hammers, and I build bookshelves for people. That's what
Right.
I do,
Right.
Um and really it's kind of weird because like I don't feel like until the last handful of years of being an adult, I've actually been able to integrate all the different parts of myself and like allow myself to enjoy those things. But there was definitely a sense of that unworthiness that you talk about.
Yeah.
And so end of high school, we move out here to East Texas to a portion of my grandparents' land. And and so I end up getting a job with a home builder. I'm not going to say what his name is or anything, but if you
Sure.
want to message
Sure.
me, I'll tell you not who to work with. Um,
It's okay.
but but uh, the job was presented as you're going to learn carpentry, you're going to learn these skills, you're going to learn how to work on a ranch.
All the
The guy
things
had a
you love,
ranch,
working with your hands,
all the
carrying
things
your
I
bag.
wanted to do. Yeah, and I went and I started the job, and pretty quickly it was apparent that he did not have a high view of people with darker colored skin than us, except for
Wow.
Mexicans because they work for cheap. Um,
Wow.
and uh, and the when you meet a real racist, like a lot of people like to apply racism to people who just have old stereotypes, grew up in a different time or something, and will say weird things. But when you meet an actual racist, it's not enough that they have these opinions. They want you to believe the same opinions, and they will constantly bring up things trying to convince you
Wow.
that there's people
Yeah,
that are
mastermind. They just want to convert
there's
people over.
different levels of people, I suppose. um and I'm an 18-year-old kid. uh I'm also being employed by this guy. I
Mhm.
really want to get a shop built on our
Sure.
property because I want to get back to making things.
Sure.
And I don't feel like I can push back.
Yeah. Yeah.
On top of that, it was a job where I felt like I was never put in a place where I could excel at anything before I was moved on to something else, especially working with him.
Mhm.
I worked with a contractor, and he probably had opinions I didn't agree with, but at least he kept them to himself, and he actually wanted to help me
Yeah.
grow and learn things.
Sure.
And worked with a guy named Manuel, and neither of us spoke English or Spanish, so but we had a great time out on tractors and stuff.
Yeah.
uh but eventually that job doesn't work out. But through the whole process of like working on something until I made one mistake, and then like, okay, well, you just sit over here and then we're going to put you on something else to do. It was taking those feelings of unworthiness, of not being able to express myself. The other thing with
Yeah.
uh and all that, it really sort of also just, I'm trying to think of how you would say it, but it just kind of reinforced those feelings of like you can't do uh whatever. I'm trying not to
Mm.
swear on here, but
Yeah, it's
you,
okay.
you yeah.
We don't
but
censor
but
you.
but those feelings of unworthiness of like, oh, I'm not good at things. I can't keep I can't keep my family from feeling hurt. I
Sure.
can't, I can't
Yeah.
control these things.
Yeah.
I'm no good at academics, and like here I am, I'm failing at carpentry
Yeah.
or whatever it was I was working on, because I
Yeah.
didn't get the time here to do this. I'm no good at standing up for myself for people I care about because I'm just sitting here. Well, he explains to me that you have to stand at the counter and watch the people cook food because they're going to spit in it because that's what that type of person does.
Wow.
And and uh and so that all weighed heavily on me for a long time.
Yeah.
And uh I guess it all stuck with me. There's throughout this whole process, I'm not anxious and depressed 100% of the time, right?
Wow.
Nobody is. It comes in waves.
Yeah.
And but there were things that would make something flare up. and
Yeah. The
and,
trigger.
and just me letting that resistance, letting that unworthiness tell me that I couldn't do things.
Mm-hmm.
And the first time, the start of me actually getting to where I could heal from that was driving to church one day. I missed the turn to the church. I try to turn in this driveway. I go too wide. My tire gets stuck down in between the ditch and the culvert, I guess, where the water passes under the driveway.
Sure.
And I flip out over it. I emotionally hurt my now fiance, because I'm just mad. This shows, how incapable of things I am. And so, I don't know how to deal with it. So,
Yeah.
I'm talking bad about myself. I'm mad at her because she's upset, and
Yeah.
I'm even kind of mad at the people who are coming from the church to help me because now everybody sees what a big failure I am, you
Sure.
know.
Sure.
And so that's the point after service and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, sorry,
It's all right. Take a breath.
yeah.
You're doing great.
Thanks. I've been doing good up till here, I guess. But my pastor Kelpine, he says, "Let me go talk to you," and it was something about him.
Mm-hmm. That's all
Sorry.
right. You're fine. Take your time.
I didn't feel like I owed him anything.
Yeah.
I felt like I owed my family, keep them happy. Uh, I owed my girlfriend because I wanted to be, the strong figure she could
Yes.
rely on,
Yeah. Yeah.
And I didn't owe him anything.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to be, something. Or I didn't think I had to.
Yeah. Yeah.
1 second.
Yeah. You're okay.
This is the bar where people won't be able to understand me.
That's all right. We'll put a little bar at the bottom and
But
translate. It's okay.
yeah.
It's all right.
But I realized that was the beginning of me finally being able to, I guess, integrate myself, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is a thing. This is a thing. Take a breath. It's okay. You're okay. This is a safe space. You're okay. Take a breath. You're all right. Because what you're experiencing and to our audience, what you're witnessing is, you know, men don't express themselves. They hold everything in. And so when they try to talk about it or they decide or make a decision to talk about it, you're going to see tears because it's painful.
yeah.
And it's normal, you know, and it's okay, right? It's
Yeah.
okay that you wasn't okay that day. That was a buildup, what you experienced that day. Because you got up in that ditch, you went in that ditch, and it was you saw probably everything and every mistake and every that you had been holding in, you know, not being able to stand up for yourself or feeling like you couldn't stand up for yourself against this, you know, the giant of a person, or being afraid or whatever it is. I mean, you were a child at that point. I mean, 18 is considered grown, but you're still a child. You know what I mean?
I was
So
I was probably 22 at that point, if we want to be
nevertheless,
honest.
I mean, but
But
nevertheless, younger
maybe a little bit older.
childhood is, you know, it's still
Yeah.
developing the language and emotion and all of the things and what's actually happened and coming all the way back. You've been holding stuff in since you were 8 years old.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So to my point, from 8 all the way here we go to 22. Now you exploding, right? How many things had happened, but from 8 to 22?
Yeah.
So just put it in perspective is what I'm saying. But go ahead. I want to give you a chance
I
to
won't say I probably didn't explode before then too, but this is the first time I felt like I felt like I could actually start healing.
yeah,
That's the
it's beginning.
and I finally could stop trying to put on this facade,
Pretending.
trying to,
Yeah.
and it really led to what I'm doing now with the podcast.
Yes.
I finally could start being myself. I could finally
Yes.
start, and I'm not gonna say I'm perfect at it. I'm still pretty bad at expressing myself a lot of the times, but I could finally start be, I guess integrating all the parts of myself.
Yes.
Finally stop listening to the resistance so much
Yes.
and start uh start putting myself out there, start putting out some of my work. I didn't care if it was perfect. I didn't care if there was somebody who could do it better. At
Yes.
least I was doing that.
Yeah.
you know
Yes.
and it's still a journey,
Yeah.
and I'm still trying to learn things. I'm still trying to be more honest with myself and
Yeah.
others. Not and doing it very imperfectly, but you know,
But you're doing
um, yeah. But yeah, I guess
it. There you
that
go. But
that's as best as I can express it right now.
yeah. And that's perfect. But you're doing it. And let me just put a plug there because I always go back and I think of Moses, especially with our men and boys, right? I always go back and I think of Moses and how, you know, before he was born. just knowing that he was coming,
Mm-hmm.
and to have this order put out to kill all the boys, right? Y'all men are so special. Y'all are so special, and you're so gifted. And it is just like, I feel like very demonically, very intentional demonic attacks are on you guys because, oh my gosh, if you stood up and found your voice, right? If you stood up in purpose and all of the gifts that God has given you, the ripple effect of that.
Yeah.
And so what happened that day is that that pastor poured into you, right? Very strategically, right? You know, God is amazing in how he uses people and he places the, because I'm sure you had done stuff before. That wasn't a new pastor for you. He wasn't, you know what I mean? He wasn't visiting the church. That's your pastor,
Yeah.
right? But
Yeah.
very strategically that day, it was okay. It was like you were ready. You know what I mean? You were ready to receive what God had for you. And so you started that healing journey. You were able to, okay, look, you were able to pluck that devil off your shoulder. Cause that's what I call him when he's on there, all that negative self-talk, you know, all that negativity.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I see anyway. As I see an angel here, you know, whispering all the good stuff, and I see a devil over here whispering all that negative stuff, all that negative self-talk. And you were able to pluck them off your shoulder. Right? Get up on.
Yeah.
Pluck them off your shoulder and decide, you know what? I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what it is. I'm going to walk in my gifts. I'm going to do it my way. I'm going to do it whether I'm doing it the right way or not. I'm going to just learn and I'm going to do it. I'm going to show up how God would have you to show up. And that is the amazing part. And that is the message today. Like, you don't have to be perfect, right? You
Yeah.
don't have to do it perfect, but God has given us all a gift.
Mm-hmm.
He's given us all a gift. And that unworthiness that you talk about, the fear, you know, the anxiety of, it's all very much demonically, it's demonic spirits that, you know, we talked about on my episode, so we're not gonna go into it again. Y'all go look, y'all go watch
Yeah.
it. But
Well,
it's just how it shows up in your day to day, you know, very, very intentionally a demonic spirit, you know,
yeah.
like that to kind of hold you and keep you hostage. And so I'm
Yeah.
glad you're making free, boo.
Well, if you don't mind me like expanding off of that,
Yeah,
because we talked about it yesterday.
yeah,
But it's kind of interesting how things come into your life at just the right time. You know,
yeah.
we're talking about what we're talking about, and I read or I listened to. I didn't read. I don't know if that counts with book
It
people,
does. It counts. It's
but
time. It was 5 hours of your time.
yeah. But I listened to the audiobook for The War of Art. I can't remember the author's name, but basically in the book he talks about and something I kind of believed on my own. I kind of put together on my own, and then you know he sort of reinforced it along with you know other books I've read, more like listened to, but you know like we're the furtherance of God's creation, you know, and you know you know if we're God's children, you know, uh we're his legacy. Let's say you have a child, you don't want them to be a robot. You want to see them go out and express themselves and create things and evolve from there. And so in this book he talks about you know God giving you inspiration. You know he calls it you know an angel or muse coming giving you inspiration, and talks about resistance. And you know we can change out what you're saying
Yes.
about the demonic spirits or whatever resistance. He talks about you know that's the enemy of God, that's the enemy of creation.
Yes.
All these things that you tell yourself that and why would I put out a podcast? There's already 700,000 or whatever the number is podcasts,
Yeah.
and 10% of them, I guess, are better than mine. Whatever percent, 'cause there's
I
some
would
bad
say no
podcasts out
percent,
there.
but okay.
but that's what you tell yourself, though,
Yeah.
is you tell yourself, like, why would I do this when there's people out there who are doing things better than me? And,
Right.
and that's the resistance. That's the Satan throughout the Old Testament, and even into the New Testament. He's sort of this mirror. He sort of takes the truth and twists it. He can't like actually create anything new,
Right.
but he can get you to stop from doing what God wants you to do. That's all he has.
Yeah.
And like Rick Rubin, Def Jam,
Yeah. Yeah.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
He's got another book. He got a
Yeah.
book I listened to called The Creative Act. And he talks about uh, the universe. He's sort
Yeah.
of a guru guy. I'm not sure what his personal religious beliefs are, but he talks about the universe has an idea that is supposed to be right,
Yeah.
and it comes to you, and you as the creative, as the artist, and he talks about we're all creative. Things we do every day are creative, just in different ways. And
Mm-hmm.
he's like, if an idea comes to you, you need to act on it, because the
Yes.
universe wants this idea out there. God
Mm.
wants this idea
Yes.
out there, whether it's music, art, literature, whatever.
Whatever it is.
And if you don't do it, oftentimes you'll see it end up somewhere else.
It's
And
very true.
they didn't
It's very
steal that
true.
idea. They
Mhm.
didn't steal that idea from you. It's just you didn't do your job
Yeah.
in going out and doing that.
Yeah.
And
Obedience.
I think that's the curse that we're living under right now, is uh, politically, and on so many things in our society, and
Mm-hmm.
particularly right now. A lot of our kids, if you look at anxiety with kids right now, it is through the roof, and it is keeping people from doing what they need to do,
Yes.
doing what is uh, drawn out there for you to do,
Yeah.
and I don't think people realize it. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think people necessarily know how to help their kids.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about all the things that happened in my life as a kid that brought me anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I want to reiterate, I'm not blaming anybody for it. But
Surely.
what I will blame is, like, if you watch children's programming now, a lot of it is the impetus is on you to change whatever it is the topic is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like I was watching a thing, they were talking about like Sesame Street uh in the like 90s compared to like some episode they put out now, and like the 90s, it was about racism.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's two of the human characters, I can't remember their names, and
Mm-hmm.
they're out having fun with Telly the puppet.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
it's kind of implied that they're a couple, but it's a Hispanic guy and a white lady.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody calls on the phone and is oh, I think it's disgusting y'all two hanging out together or whatever. And Telly doesn't really understand what's going on,
Mm-hmm.
and they just kind of explain, like, there's just people out there with hate in their heart. They just don't like other people. And you know, you don't have that. And you just keep on loving other people. And that's all you have to do.
Yeah.
Then there was like this recent one. And you know, it's Elmo and his dad's calling him about some riot, one of the big riots that happened, you know. And like the way the dad's like explaining it to Elmo for some reason through a video call, but,
Okay.
but it's like it's basically telling the kids, because Elmo's a stand-in for the kids in the show. It's telling them that they need to solve racism. It's
Oh,
not. It's not that you need to love people and
yeah.
that's what your goal should be. It's you need to solve this with like all the ecological stuff. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I had friends who were paralyzed because of it, because everything was like the world is going to end and it's up to you, you know, 8-year-old to solve it.
Right.
and,
Right.
and that's the thing, is like kids are inundated, they're online constantly now too.
Yes. Yes.
But you hear that the world is ending every single day.
Yeah.
And I hear that. And I'm an adult.
Yeah.
You know,
It's a
imagine you,
creation, very intentional creation of fear and anxiety.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I think people don't recognize it because it's presented as a very good thing. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
everybody agrees racism is bad.
True.
Everybody agrees we should take care of the planet.
True.
But it's this thing of like telling these kids it's their responsibility to fix everything.
Yeah.
You know,
Not allowing children to be children.
yeah.
Not allowing children to be children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You're putting the weight of the world on these children's shoulders.
yeah. And how is a kid who has all this anxiety on top of whatever their home life is like? You know, like I'm a kid going through my grandparents having cancer
Right.
and and
Right.
things in my life changing very rapidly. And I don't know how to deal with it. Add on top of that, if I was being told every day that, you know, the world was going to end and I got to save the world, and I also am responsible for ending racism.
Right.
Imagine how much pressure that is,
Yeah.
and like, and how are they going to be able to actualize in their lives? How are they going to be able to see that the way that we achieve those things is small personal growth,
Yeah.
so that you can help other people?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's and if you can't do these small things in your life, you're never going to be able to go and solve all the world's
Anything,
problems.
let alone
Yeah.
racism and world hunger and planet,
Ecological
save the
disaster.
planet. Right.
Yeah. And I, I, I just don't know where we're headed with that, you know? And
Well, let me say this too, because it is, the again, not allowing children to be children and not even realizing. I feel like just like most parents and most people are trying to come up with solution, for things, but don't fully understand subconsciously what they're doing to our children. They are
yeah,
creating, and it's not even because there'll be a group of people out there to be like, age doesn't matter. And, there are some children that are thinking about it. And there's some kids that are going to come up with some great grand idea. And that's great. But for the majority of children, right. For the majority of children, that's part of the problem, is that we have not allowed our children to be children, just be and recognizing. And I feel like, again, that's why, not pointing fingers, but sharing the story and understanding for the generations to come, that children need time to be children, and teaching your child to love each other, to love, but to your point, to love yourself first, Because you're right, you cannot save and do and be for everyone else if you don't start with yourself.
For
If you
sure.
don't have a foundation of love for yourself, if you don't have a foundation of how to, deal with demonic attacks, a spiritual connection, a holistic view, if you don't understand how your emotions, how you're affected emotionally, how are you going to love someone else if you don't love yourself enough to get yourself together, to
Yeah.
understand and know yourself? Why am I responding the way that I'm responding? The fact that you said I was yelling at my girlfriend because I was upset about something that didn't have anything to do with her. It
Yeah.
was your emotions, that your own emotions that were unchecked. And that is a big degree of why the divorce rate is so high, because we don't know ourselves. We're marrying people just to say we're married. We're not establishing relationship with ourselves first before we establish with someone else. We just don't want to be alone. We don't want to die alone. We don't, whatever
Yeah.
the reasons are. You know what I mean? And so it's so many layers, but it starts with, what is your foundation with yourself?
Hmm.
Mind, body, spirit, emotions. Why are you doing the things that you do? Why are you responding the way that you respond? How can you love the way that you love? Why do you love so hard like that? Is it because you didn't receive the love? You're trying to give the love that you didn't receive, but it's not reciprocated. So you find yourself in these abusive, emotionally, verbally abusive men and women,
Yeah.
right? Abusive relationships because you're out there searching,
Yeah.
or you don't feel like you deserve the love. And that's where that unworthiness comes in, you know,
Yeah.
understanding that you do deserve. It wasn't because
It's
they didn't love you,
it's
because you didn't, they were busy, things were going on, right? But it's
yeah.
subconsciously what we tell ourselves is that foundation of that unforgiveness, unworthiness, excuse me. But go ahead.
Yeah. I was just saying, like it's funny because it does sound simple, like knowing yourself. Like,
Yep.
yeah, but how much stuff do you just do unconsciously? You
Very
know,
subconsciously. Exactly.
like, like, the forgiving yourself,
Mm-hmm.
all these ideas. It sounds very simple, but it's not. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's sort of like I don't know, sort of the idea of almost repentance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, oh, it's saying I'm sorry.
To
But it's not.
yourself.
Yeah.
To yourself.
Well, that's the thing, is it's like you almost do have to repent to yourself to actually do that, even before uh you can do God's will.
Yeah.
Like if from
Yeah.
my end, I'm sure I'm very geared towards the creative,
Yeah.
and so there's probably some engineer out there who none of this makes sense to, but um, but it's how can you further God's creation if you if you can't allow yourself to, for one, forgive yourself,
Mm-hmm.
actually recognize what's going on inside you. It's not going to be a thing where, like, once you recognize it, that's almost where it begins, you
Yeah.
know and and then, like, a lot of times, like, you do things almost as a placebo for yourself, trying to convince yourself that you feel better than you do, that you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing, and helping others, whatever it is, but actually you're using that as a form of resistance too. You're still using that to distract yourself
Exactly.
from, and it doesn't have to be a bad thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
You can be doing good stuff, but you're not, completely doing God's will. You're still sort of Jonah on the boat trying to run away. you know.
Exactly. 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 Because it's uncomfortable to, one, to take that look at yourself and very intentionally deal with the things that are uncomfortable in your spirit.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And then so what you've done is you've created a day to day where I got to go to work. I got to pay these bills. I have to do this. I have to do that. Right. I was talking to my
Mm-hmm.
cousin yesterday, and my daughter's an artist, and at our family reunion yesterday, we did I displayed her artwork, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
did like an art show. And one of my cousins came up and he said, how he was inspired, but he said he hadn't done art in years. And I said, why? What happened? And he said, man, it's been like 6 or 7 years. He said, well, he started working. He started, doing this other thing. And I said, it just reminded me of, you get grown, you got to work. It's almost like you lose your dream, you lose your passion, you lose your sight of your gift that God has given you, right?
Mm-hmm.
You feel like, I can't do that anymore because I have to pay these bills. I got to go to work. I got to do this. I got to take care of family. I got to do. So you lose your passion, you lose your drive, you lose your gifts in the day to day. And I just want to implore, and I just want to encourage somebody out there to say, I don't care how old you are. Like, I don't feel like, as long as you're on this side of heaven, I feel like, and if you're hearing this message, because I don't believe in coincidences, right?
Yeah.
As long as you're on this side of heaven and you're hearing this message, that means we're talking to you. Like, it's time. It's not too late to do whatever it is, whatever your gift is that God has given you. And we don't pay your bills. I'm not saying don't go to work, right? But find a way to do what your gift is, what God has given you, what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
That will definitely decrease your anxiety. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That'll definitely decrease, all that negative self-talk. That'll decrease the feelings of unworthiness, the feelings of, unforgiveness, because you've lost yourself somewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
No, I
Crazy.
interviewed, and I'd like to consider him a friend, local artist Carl Nelson, and he talked about, he works full time over at Lazy Boy in Tyler, and he says, every day I have to make myself do something,
Yeah.
whether it's prepping a canvas
Yes.
or just adding tones to something, but like don't allow what you need to do to survive to
Yeah.
stand in the way of what you've been gifted.
Yeah.
Like you can do both. I mean, I've gotten to interviews half asleep before. Like
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
pounding Red Bulls on the way over, trying to wake up enough to remember
Uh,
who I'm interviewing.
yeah.
But
But you're going and you're doing it anyway. Yeah.
yeah, and when you feel like what you're doing is fulfilling, then you're doing the right thing. You
Yes.
know, and it doesn't matter that you're tired. you know,
That's right.
yeah.
That's right. I love that. Well,
But
sir,
I
what's
think this has been productive.
this journey here, this journey that you shared today, and I know it got a little bit emotional for you, and but I thank you. I thank you for, one, stepping outside of your comfort zone,
Oh,
right?
thank you.
And sharing your story, because again, I do feel like it is inspiring, and for whoever is watching this, it is, you know, realizing that your story, you don't know who your story is going to help.
Yeah.
And I said this to Isaac before. I'm like, one thing that I've learned is that I thought the things that I was doing was for me, but they're not. They're not for
hmm
me, God has given them to me. God has given me my story. He's given, as crazy as all the crazy is that has happened. I thought it was for my own purpose and my own healing, but it's not. It's for me to heal from it. It's for us to heal from it, and then for us to share. That's the whole purpose of having a testimony, and that's what you just gave us today. Was a testimony, right?
Yeah.
Journey and the survival, and everybody's testimony is going to be a little bit different, and that's okay. You know what I mean? Everybody's journey is a little bit different. We are going to get there a little bit differently, but understanding to be intentional. It's one thing to go day to day, but it's another thing when you get intentional about, taking that look inside and healing, and so that you can get to purpose, not perfection.
Yeah.
It's the purpose,
Yeah.
and like your friend and like you doing a little bit, and like me doing a little bit every day. You know what I mean? I'm not doing as much as I want to do, but I'm doing a little bit every week. I put it on my schedule. I'm going to do this. I set a goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I try to do something, to ward off those feelings of, all that negative self-talk, all of that stuff. So do something towards your goal. So I just want to thank you. I thank you for your transparency.
So just titled this "Do Something."
I like it. Definitely.
That's the name of the video. Do something.
That is done. Well, while we're wrapping up today, is there any last words, anything else you want to say to the good people?
Don't stop learning. Stay interested in things. Learn all you can, and more importantly than learning is apply that stuff.
Yes.
Apply what you learn, and it will grow no matter how insignificant you think it is, whether or not you think other people will understand it or want to know about it. It's important.
Yeah.
For some reason it is. It's sort of a mystery of faith, I guess.
I love it.
And go subscribe to Unordinary People on YouTube and Unordinary People Facebook and Instagram, and boost my numbers.
And Isaac is always looking for a story, honey. So if you want to be a guest, reach out to him. What kind of guests do you have on the show, Isaac? Tell him about it real quick.
I have everything from artists and painters to Soviet special forces and murderers to film photography addicts and punk rockers and everything in between. If you have an interesting story, I want to hear it, and I want people around me to hear it. And I think most people are unordinary in some way. Yeah. And I think everybody should go out and talk to their neighbor, and you'll never know what you're going to learn.
That's what we used to do back in the olden days, is sit on the porch and talking to big mamas and talking to, and hearing all of the stories. Yeah. You're like, what?
Well, no, that's honestly probably how I got it started, was just like talking to old dudes in the neighborhood and my grandparents and stuff. But thank you so much for having me on. Seriously.
You're very welcome. And you're very welcome.
I hope, this wasn't just a schizophrenic rant of mine and people can understand.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. I feel like it was amazing. I appreciate you again for coming on. I know it is always hard, especially for you men, to just share and be vulnerable and be transparent, but understanding that it is necessary. Again, it is Men's Month. The month of October, and your mental health, your mental well-being is number one top priority. I know that, it's uncomfortable, but that's why I'm here. I help you to have the the uncomfortable but necessary conversations.
Have those necessary uncomfortable conversations. I'm going to warn you, my battery, my laptop just informed me
We're wrapping up. Uh-oh. I guess we look, and the way it left, that was perfect. That was perfect. Well, again, I thank Isaac today for being our special guest. I love it. I thank him for being our special guest today, and grateful. It is your girl, Michelle Allen Franklin, honey. It has been another episode of Reflections She's a Me Guilt Free that you find on the YouTube channel. Go on over there and follow us on YouTube. Like Mr. Les Brown, honey, I aspire to inspire until I expire. That's what I'm doing, honey. What you doing? Until the next one. Y'all have a good one.